The Empire was the venue for this year's Business in the Community Awards, for companies making a real difference in society. It was introduced by BITC's distinguished president, though not quite in person.
I am, however, as you can see, with you in virtual form and in an incredibly low-carbon embodiment. Now, when I was choosing my ambassadors this year, I was reflecting on the astonishing effect that individuals can have. I suppose that is to state the obvious, but over the last 23 years, I've been president of Business in the Community. It has been enormously rewarding to work with some remarkable business leaders who have quite literally changed the way the business is done. The challenges facing businesses and communities over a quarter of a century have inevitably changed. But the need for outstanding leadership remains vital. Indeed, at a time of economic uncertainty, it requires exceptional people who can remain determined to keep responsible business behaviour at the heart of all they do, whether that be tackling climate change, homelessness, educational underachievement, or rural and urban deprivation. So I'm full of admiration for those leaders around the country who are using their skills, their ingenuity and their resources to make a difference for the better. And tonight is my opportunity to recognise their outstanding contribution.
For me, the performance by the East London Dance Youth Company was about, if something doesn't work, try again. And it was nice to be among the many award winners.
Next is the Power in Partnership Award, and this is for groups of 2 or more companies that are having an impact on society through collaborative action. The winners in this category are BT, Cisco and One World South Asia.
The following day, and Anuradha Vitaji was representing One World at the Ashton Awards. Now in their 8th year, they recognise outstanding achievement in sustainable energy solutions. The event was presided over by a familiar virtual presence, with as his representative on Earth, the former UK Government Chief Scientific Advisor, Sir David King.
You wouldn't be able to walk around the demonstration I've just seen without having an enormous sense of optimism. What I've seen is young people and middle-aged people and older people who are engaged in this in a way that 3 or 4 years ago was impossible to imagine. So I feel we have, you used the phrase, Anna, tipping point. I think we have, in many ways, turned that point. But there is a sobering thought behind this. I'm afraid the challenge is enormous. We need to decarbonise our economies, and to achieve that in a relatively short period of time is a massive challenge.
Eight Ashen Awards were given to sustainable energy initiatives on display from the UK and around the world.
You can feel the actual difference between how much power it takes to power an energy-efficient light bulb to a normal light bulb to a TV screen, and the hardest of all is the laptop. So you have to think about the amount of power it takes to power a laptop.
So this is really an education thing, is it, rather than a means of getting energy?
That's right. It's an education thing. It's about educating people about the amount of power it actually takes when you have all of these things plugged in your home, and about changing behaviours related to energy efficiency.
The Outstanding Achievement Award went to Grameen Energy, an offshoot of the Grameen Bank, and their MD, Deepal Chandra Barua.
Basically in Bangladesh, 145 million people living. Only 30% people are enjoying electricity from the grid line. 70% people no electricity. So Grameen Shakti working hard to bring electricity from the sunlight, solar energy. Now we are installing every month 8,000. So far we install 164,000 solar home system. 12 million people are getting electricity from the solar. But we are planning to do more. By 2010, we will install 1 million solar home system.
In a world where 2 billion people still lack access to modern forms of energy, where oil prices are escalating and the effects of climate change are becoming increasingly evident, these winners show us the path to a sustainable and positive future.
I asked one of the international judges, John McGrath from Oxfam, what he thought of this year's winners.
Well, I think that these projects show the level of ingenuity that exists in the human race. And there's one example, which is a blacksmith, a village blacksmith from Tanzania, a very remote area. And he was just inspired by seeing all these mounds of sawdust lying around, and he thought, I think I'll invent a sawdust burning stove. So he sat down and he did it, he invented it. Now his workshop, they make a few, 3 or 5 a day out of old iron which they get from cars. But the astonishing thing about this invention from this guy who is only educated at primary level, that he's probably invented the most efficient sawdust burning stove in the world to date.
The emphasis of the evening was on sustainable energy solutions that work and that can be taken to scale. Examples that we can all follow.
What is required is response from individuals, and that we've seen tonight, voluntary responses, changes in behaviour which means that we actually invert that process of admiring people who use an enormous amount of energy and rather turn it around and admire people who use very little energy. I got into trouble with Mr. Ferrari by referring to Ferraris as an exemplar. We need to change individually our culture. If you're a politician, this also means you have to embed it in all of your thinking, not just make one speech on climate change and then make a different speech in which climate change is not mentioned about GDP growth. If we fully embed the problem, we need to see that we put GDP growth, controlling inflation and reducing carbon emissions all up there at the top of our agendas.